Well, thanks everyone. So UFOP is a great venue for a lot of my students. So Chris Ward is one of my master's students, and Emily Keller is doing a poster that's out there in the corner, so definitely take a look at it. I've been trying to convince my, my students that the Cenozoic is the place to be, but they always want to work in the Mesozoic. So my talk is going to be to kick off the Cenozoic, I guess, portion of this, this day. So we're moving beyond the Cretaceous and going across the KT boundary. And the Cenozoic is really, really cool. And you probably noticed when you walked in that we have this wonderful animal, this creature that's out there. That's Patrophyllus. Now, Patrophyllus is a oxyhenid creodont, so they're totally extinct. There's no living relative of Patrophyllus today. But one of the impressive things about Patrophyllus was that during the Eocene, it was hunting and killing the animals I'm going to be talking about, and those are rhinoceroses. So take a look at the size of it and realize it was taking on rhinoceroses. Of course, the rhinoceroses were a bit smaller back in the Eocene. And I'm going to be talking about a specimen that we found this last summer. It's kind of the coolest thing, I think, that we found this last summer. I've been working up in the Washakie Formation, and I've been working up there in part because I'm interested in seeing how the fauna of the Washakie Formation in Wyoming on the north side of the Uintah Mountains compares to the Uintah Basin fauna that we have here in Utah. So I know no one's an expert on rhinos here, I don't think. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the fossil record of rhinoceroses. So this is a modern black rhinoceros, and it has two giant horns. Those horns are actually made out of keratin, and there's no bone underneath those horns. They're not like ceratopsian dinosaurs that have a bony core, nor they're like pronghorn antelopes, but also a bony core. They're just composed completely of keratin. So to recognize whether they had horns or not in the fossil record, we have to look at, see how kind of rugose the nasals and the frontal bones are. So I thought I'd mention first the 5 living species of rhinoceroses that we have living today. There's 2 species in Africa, both critically endangered. The white rhino, Ceratotherium simium, has about 20,000 individuals in the wild. There's a subspecies that's known from Central Africa that has 3 individuals left, and that's it. And 3 individuals are pretty mature, and they can't get them to reproduce, so they'll probably be extinct fairly soon. The black rhino is about 4,000, 5,000 species in the wild. Its range overlaps with the white rhino. And the way you tell them apart is not by the horns or anything, it's basically by looking at their mouths. So the white rhinoceros should have been called the wide-mouthed rhino because it has a very wide mouth, and that's because it's a grazer. So it grazes mostly on grass. The black rhinoceros, Rhinoceros bicornis, has a very narrow mouth, and that's because it's a browser. Their horns can vary by individuals, but it's the dentition and the way that they feed that really separates them. So they can live in the same environment but feed on different food sources. And then we have the 2 really, really critically endangered rhinoceroses. Both of these species used to range across Southeast Asia, and today they're only known in Indonesia on separate islands. The Java rhinoceros is only found, there's only 46 individuals, none in zoos. They're all confined to a single national park in Java. And then the Sumatran rhinoceros, there's about 150 in the wild, 20 in zoos, and it's confined to 3 national parks in Sumatra. Now you'll notice that the Sumatran rhinoceros is hairy, and what's really cool is genetics indicate that the Sumatran rhino is most closely related to the woolly rhino that used to range across Asia and Europe during the Pleistocene. So you have woolly rhinos living today, which is pretty cool, but critically endangered. So the story of modern rhinoceroses is kind of sad. There's not very many individuals left. They're going extinct. But when we look in the fossil record, we have an extensive, really fabulous fossil record of rhinoceroses. So this is the fabulous site that Mike Voorhees found in Nebraska. This is Ashfall Fossil Beds, which is now State Historic Park in Nebraska. This is Teleocereus, which is our North American, very common rhinoceros found throughout the Miocene, going all the way up to the Pliocene. And this is a really amazing site. It's like a Pompeii sort of environment where you had an ash fall that fell and killed little rhinos and little individuals there. Pretty amazing, amazing site. So North America has a really extensive fossil record of rhinoceroses. Although they all go extinct at the Pliocene, we have it going all the way back into the Eocene. And so I'm going to be talking about some of the Eocene rhinos that were living here around 46 to 40 million years ago. So this is Tragonus from the late Eocene of Colorado. There's a fabulous site in northeastern Colorado. It's a late Eocene Chadronian rhinoceros. If you see this, you would say it's a rhinoceros. It's just missing the horns. And it's fairly large, sort of like a Java sort of rhinoceros size. I'm also showing Luke Holbrook's cladogram here. And this little portion up here that's featured, these are all members of the family Rhinoceridae. These are true rhinos. And there's other late Eocene true rhinos, Subparachodon, which also goes by the name Keniops. If you go to any old museum collections, like the Smithsonian still has their stuff labeled as Keniops. This is a Chadronian late Eocene rhino, again looking very rhino-like in appearance. Now if we step back and go a little further in time, we're going back to the Duchenian, so around 40 million years ago, so we're heading into the middle part of the Eocene. We have this critter. This is from the John Day National Fossil Beds in their oldest strata, which is the Hancock Quarry up in Oregon. And so this is an interesting rhino. It's a little bit smaller and it's got these kind of telescoping skulls. And I've been really interested in seeing if there is some Duchenian-aged rhinos, and there's a fragment in the Smithsonian of a tooth that I think might belong to this taxa. I'm hoping to eventually find some more Duchenian rhinos in Utah. So if I'm going to be talking about fossil rhinos, I have to talk about this guy. This is a great portrait. It's painted by a famous British artist, and this is a famous, he painted famous people in the 1920s, and he decided to paint a picture of Clive Forster Cooper, who was famous because he discovered this thing. So this is Paraceratherium. The American Museum also sent expeditions out there. This is Otto Frankenbach, who's prepared at the American Museum for scale. It's a huge, giant rhinoceros. And so it's from the Oligocene of Asia, found basically all over Asia. It goes by the name of Beleucotherium, was the name that Henry Fairfield Osborn came up. It's within a group called the Endrichthotheres. But Paraceratherium was this giant, huge monster rhinoceros. There's some debate whether it's the largest land mammal. Very big creature during the Oligocene. These are some reconstructions. Here's Osborn's reconstruction for 1923 when they found that skull, which is on display in New York, compared to the modern day rhinoceros. So these things were huge. Now Don Prothero thinks that he's got some bones that might belong to one of these guys in North America. We'll have to see, but no one's found any of these in North America for certain. But intermixed with those fossils from Asia was a bunch of skulls of very small rhinos from the Middle Eocene. And Rudinsky decided to name these rhinos Forster Cooperi in honor of Clive and his research in finding Paraceratherium. And the interesting thing was when Rudinsky was working on this, he also found some specimens from Utah and from Wyoming that he also placed within this group. So he placed Forster, this is Luke Holbrook's phylogeny. He placed it right in there with Paraceratherium and Juxia. Juxia is another big, huge rhino. These guys are little guys, and these are sort of the ancestors to those giants that you see in the Oligocene. Now, later on, Luke Holbrook and Spencer Lucas started looking at these things that Rudinsky had called Forster Cooperi, and they said, these ones from Utah, this specimen right here is from the Uintah Basin, that these guys were actually different, and they were actually more closely related to true rhinoceroses. Now this specimen that they had, that they named Uintaceros, it's missing the anterior part of the dentition, or missing the incisors. So they kind of put a question mark whether it's a true rhino or not. But it's a fairly big animal in comparison to what was known previously, and it's on there. Now, there's two other groups of rhinos. They're not true rhinos. They're placed within the superfamily Rhinoceridae. And these are the swamp rhinos, which include Amblyodon and Medi-Amblyodon. This is a specimen that was discovered in the Uintah Basin during the oil and gas. It was salvaged from operations there that Dan Burke actually prepped up and put on his website. So these are the swamp rhinos. They're like hippo, like big rhinos. They look more like hippopotamuses. They have really weird and strange teeth. And then we had the running rhinoceroses. These were small sheep-sized rhinoceroses that were built for speed. They lose some of their toes. They're down to 3 toes. And Trilopus is a Uintah taxa. It's known from the Middle Eocene. So we had both of these guys also living during the Middle Eocene. So here's all those groups that I mentioned in a strat column. So we have true rhinos, which are red here, the swamp rhinos, the running rhinos, and then we have these giant rhinos. So this is Forest Cupriae, and then when we get into the Oligocene, we have the big Paraceratherium. They got really, really big. So there was something going on at the Bergerian-Uintan boundary. Things are getting cool climate-wise at this boundary, but rhinos just diversified and became really, really diverse. So now I'm going to talk about the fossil that we found this summer that we've identified as Hyrachyus exemplaris, which is from the very top, right there, right below this big diversification of rhinoceroses, and talk about this fossil. This is the site it came from in the Washakie Basin of Wyoming, so going right across the border from Colorado and Utah. Is about 100 miles. You're looking out to the northwest, so about 100 miles that direction you'd find Rock Springs. So it's out in the middle of kind of nowhere near the Adobe Town wilderness area. And we're working in the upper part, or I mean the lower part of the Adobe Town member of the Washakie Formation. So the Uintah-Bergerian boundary is like where I'm standing to photograph this picture. And this is Chris Ward, you just heard from out there collecting in the Adobe Town wilderness area. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to work. It's a lot of fun. This is what it looked like in the field. This is what it looked like when we took it out in the jackets. We knew we had a skull. We didn't know what it was. And we brought it back. Now let's see if I can play this little clip. Oh, actually, can you hit the button? There's like a little play button underneath there. Someone's manning the clip of a time lapse. We probably won't play. But basically, it's just a time lapse of us preparing the specimen over the week or so that it took. But we'll just, I guess, switch to see it fully prepared here. This is a horse skull here for comparison to take a look at. So I've prepped out most of it. We have complete cranium. What's really fabulous about this specimen is it's not crushed, so it's not distorted. We know it's a rhinoceros because we have the teeth on one side, and I'm working on reconstructing the teeth on the other side. And rhinos have like a pi symbol tooth pattern, whereas brontotheres, which are much more common during this period of time, they have a W sort of shaped pattern on their upper molars. So pretty cool little specimen that we found. And so then this is identifying it. So this is comparing it to Horace Wood stuff. And it belongs to this group here that have all been synonymized into a single species, Hyrachyus exemplaris. Now, I thought my specimen was really cool, but the American Museum has a better specimen. This specimen is from the Bridger Formation. This is the third specimen known from the Washakie Formation, which indicates that the Bridger and the Washakie are overlapping in time, and we're getting the same creature. Hyrachyus is also known from the late Bergerian, and these beds are the latest Bergerian, so it means that it's Bergerian. This is kind of a little quick sketch I did. It looks like a horse, but the eye is sort of in the center instead of up here where you see it in horses. So a very horse-like sort of creature. There are some other really nice specimens of Hyrachyus, and one of the places you can find a really nice specimen of Hyrachyus is in Messel, Germany. This is a specimen found in Germany, very fabulous specimen. So Hyrachyus is able to move around, and this is another mounted specimen from the Bridger Formation from southwest Wyoming. So looking at the phylogeny, Hyrachyus is interesting because it's this wide geographic taxa that's sort of ancestral to this whole group of rhinoceroses, including the running rhinos, the swamp rhinos. And so we're trying to figure out what's happening between that boundary. What sort of triggered this diversification of rhinoceroses right at the Bergerian Uintah boundary. So just some acknowledgments. I want to thank Brett and Rebecca Hunt Foster and everybody at the BLM who's done us a great favor and has big jobs. The Utah Fieldhouse Museum in Vernal, Steve Sroka, Dale Gray, and Roland Heath, and the fabulous facility that all these fossils go to. Our 2015 field crew and the Utah State University Uintah Basin campus in Vernal where I work. And then I just ended this poster. We have so much fun in the field. This is my daughter. And it's windy in Wyoming, so you can strap on a trash bag and pretend you're Superman, some superhero. So, excellent.